I had just finished briefing the state attorney about a high-profile corruption case when I pulled into my driveway on my Harley. Still in uniform under my jacket, ready to relax, but then this teenager walks up and demands I hand over my motorcycle because his mom, the head of our HOA, thinks it's too loud. When I said no, she called the cops, not knowing both officers arriving already knew exactly who I was and what happened next. Let's just say she'd never threatened me again. Karen had no idea the two officers she had just summoned already had a file on her from a separate incident. Last month, something involving a forged permit she used to try and block off a public sidewalk, calling it a community safety gate. That alone had raised eyebrows at City Hall, but since no one pressed charges back then, she got away. With just a warning, and now she was doing it again, escalating drama, and lying to law enforcement to get her way. Officer Jenkins leaned over to me and said, "Honestly, I've been waiting for a reason to write her up. You want us to file this as a false report?" I looked at Karen, still clutching her phone, pretending to tremble. Her son stood behind her with a smug little grin, thinking Mommy was about to get them a free Harley. I said, "Let's give her one more shot, to be honest." Jenkins nodded. He walked over and said, "Ma'am, are you absolutely certain the man in question threatened your son?" Her answer was ridiculous. She said yes. He looked dangerous and aggressive. He revved that loud machine like it was a weapon, feared for our lives. Jenkins turned to the second officer, who pulled out his phone and pressed play on a video he had just recorded from his body cam. In it, I was calm, standing with arms folded, simply asking Karen to leave my driveway. Her son could be heard yelling in the background about how I should give him the bike. The officer paused the clip and said, "This doesn't match your statement." Karen stuttered. She tried to pivot. I just meant he was intimidating. I didn't say he attacked us. "That's not what you told dispatch, ma'am," Jenkins said, "and it's illegal to file a false police report. That's a misdemeanor offense under city code." She started panicking now. I didn't mean to file a false report. I just wanted someone to do something. He was being disrespectful." "Disrespectful is not a crime, ma'am," the officer replied. Firmly, "Now you're on thin ice." Karen tried to backpedal, throwing her son under the bus. He just wanted the motorcycle. Thought it was unfair that such a loud thing is allowed in a family neighborhood. He's just a child. The smug grin on her son's face had vanished. Now he looked nervous. Jensen glanced at me and said, "You still want to let this go? Or shall we press charges?" I replied, "Not yet. But I want this incident logged. Fully, name, address, everything. And let her know next time she calls law enforcement on a lie, she'll be facing court." Karen looked stunned. Her entire plan was crumbling. She thought she could bully me out of my own driveway. She didn't know I was not only a licensed investigator, but I also had direct contact with the state legal team. Then, right on cue, my phone rang. It was the state attorney himself. I answered on speaker. He said, "Everything all right?" He mentioned something about an HOA situation. I gave him the summary. He chuckled and said, "Want me to send someone over from legal, or are we letting her off with a warning?" The cops raised their eyebrows. Karen looked like she might faint. I said, "Just a warning, for now, but keep her name on file in case she tries this again." The attorney said, "Will do. Call me if it escalates." And he hung up. That phone call did more damage than any fine or ticket could have. Karen stood there frozen. Her mouth moved like she wanted to say something, but nothing came out. I turned to the officers and said, "Thanks for the fast response, gentlemen. You know where to reach me if she tries something else." Jenkins nodded, gave me a fist bump, and they walked back to their vehicles. Karen tried one last time to save face. She muttered something about how she was only trying to protect her son. I didn't even bother replying. I turned around, fired up my Harley, and let the engine roar just a bit louder than usual. Karen flinched. Her son jumped. I didn't need to say a word. The message was loud and clear. I thought that would be the end of it. I really did, but with people like Karen, humiliation only fuels obsession. 3 days later, I got a notice taped to my front door. It was an official-looking HOA complaint, signed by the board president, conveniently Karen herself. According to the paper, my motorcycle violated 6 different HOA guidelines. ranging from unauthorized vehicle types to disturbing neighborhood aesthetics. It even claimed my presence caused emotional distress to other residents. I chuckled. Emotional distress from a Harley Davidson. Oh. This was pure retaliation.
Oh.
I knew this was personal, not procedural. She had weaponized the HOA, and now she was trying to use official paperwork to force me out. But what she didn't know was that I had been quietly documenting everything, every word, every action, every lie. I had video footage, audio recordings, and written statements from neighbors who had seen the incident. Even better, I had already started building a file on her after that fake permit stunt last month. She thought she was coming for me, but in reality, she had just handed me everything I needed to bring her down properly. I didn't respond to the fake violation notice. Instead, I requested a formal HOA board hearing, as per the rules. I wanted everything to go on record. The date was set. Karen likely thought I'd come in alone and flustered, maybe even embarrassed. But I showed up in full business attire with 2 folders, one filled with legal documents, the other with evidence. And I didn't come alone. I had a friend from the state attorney's office sit quietly in the back as an observer. Not a word spoken, just presence. Karen's smug expression dropped the moment she saw me walk in. She tried to regain control, calling the meeting to order and launching into a speech about neighborhood safety and the need to maintain a peaceful community. But when it came time for my rebuttal, I stood up, laid my evidence on the table, and spoke clearly. I played the police body cam audio, presented the call logs, showed her forged notice, and even pulled out city zoning data proving motorcycles were permitted in private driveways. The room was dead silent. Board members who usually nodded along with Karen were now looking at her like she was radioactive.
Oh.
I turned to one of them and said, "You can either side with her or side with the law. Allows her to continue this harassment, I'll file a formal complaint with the county, in the city, and if that doesn't work, I'll take it to the media. This is a textbook abuse of HOA power." Karen's face was beet red. She tried to interrupt, but was shut down by the vice president of the board, who said, "Karen, you need to sit down. We'll review this evidence and make a decision." The meeting ended without a vote that day, but it didn't matter. I had planted the seed. Karen had lost the one thing she craved most: control. Later that night, one of the board members privately dropped by my house. He apologized and admitted that Karen had been manipulating the board for months. He thanked me for finally pushing back, said, "You've got friends here, you're not alone." That meant more than I expected. The next day, I got another call, this time from the state attorney's office. They had reviewed the documentation I had submitted just in case, and they were considering launching a full investigation into Karen's abuse of her HOA authority, especially with how she used police resources. I gave them everything. Emails, meeting notes, texts from neighbors. I wanted to fight her the right way, legally, cleanly, and publicly. Karen had started this war over a motorcycle. Now she had the entire legal system watching her every move. Karen must have realized things were slipping. But instead of backing down, she doubled down. 2 days after the HOA hearing, flyers started appearing in the neighborhood, cheaply printed paper, tucked into mailboxes, taped to street poles, and even shoved under windshields. The headline said, "Is your neighborhood safe?" Yeah. And underneath, it was a grainy screenshot of me walking toward my house with my motorcycle helmet in hand. The flyer accused me of being hostile, unpredictable, and a threat to children's peace. It even claimed I had intimidated the HOA board and suggested neighbors proceed with caution. I laughed when I first saw it, and I got mad. This wasn't just HOA harassment anymore. This was defamation. Karen had printed and distributed a character attack campaign across the community. What she didn't realize was that distributing false materials to defame someone, especially when done through HOA channels, could be considered both civil and criminal misconduct. I collected every copy I could find, took photos, and submitted them to the state attorney's office that same day. They were stunned. And it just so happened that a community town hall meeting was scheduled for the following week. A perfect storm was building. The town hall wasn't run by the HOA, it was hosted by the city, attended by council members, legal reps, and community members from several nearby districts. Karen was there, of course, acting like nothing was wrong. She even tried to cozy up to the mayor, bragging about her leadership on the HOA board. But I had come prepared. When the mic was open for public concerns, I walked calmly to the front, introduced myself with full credentials, and began. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't insult. I simply told the truth. I described the harassment. I faced the false police report, the forged violation notices, the defamation flyers, and the abuse of HOA authority, all backed by evidence. I finished by saying, if this is what one HOA board member can do to a state investigator with legal knowledge, imagine what she's done to regular residents who don't know their rights. The room was dead silent, and a few hands went up. People started coming forward. One woman described how Karen fined her for having her grandkids' toys in the yard. A man shared how his mailbox was removed after refusing to attend HOA meetings. Within minutes, Karen's carefully built persona collapsed under the weight of real stories. The mayor looked genuinely disturbed. He asked to speak with me privately after the meeting. Karen tried to interrupt but was shut down by security. The next morning, I received an official letter from the city clerk's office. An inquiry had been opened into HOA Board 17C, specifically citing abuse of power and targeted community harassment. Karen was under formal investigation, and the worst part for her, I wasn't the one leading the charge. Now it was the city. The system she thought she controlled was now looking at her as the problem. Her own board began distancing themselves. That same week, 3 members resigned. An emergency vote was called to remove Karen from her leadership role. She fought hard, but the vote passed. 6-1. She was out. You'd think after being removed from the board and humiliated at a city town hall, Karen would finally back off. But no. The thing about people like her is, when they lose power, they get reckless. 2 nights after she was voted out, my doorbell rang around 9 p.m. I checked the security camera and saw one of the remaining HOA members standing there, nervously glancing around. I opened the door and let him in. He looked pale, anxious, and clutched a folder to his chest. He said, "You didn't get this from me." Then he handed me the folder and left. Inside was something unbelievable, photocopies of altered HOA records. Karen had been tampering with complaint logs, rewriting entries to make it look like other neighbors had supported her claims about me. She even faked votes, including one that said I had been warned repeatedly and that my bike had been deemed a neighborhood hazard. None of it was true. And here's the kicker. She had digitally signed the name of the now resigned board members, forging their approval. This was no longer petty revenge. This was fraud. I forwarded everything straight to the state attorney's office. They took it seriously, really seriously. Within 48 hours, a formal investigation was launched, and subpoenas were issued for HOA board documents. Karen was called in for questioning. She tried to spin it, claiming it was all a misunderstanding, but they weren't buying it. The documents were damning, and the forgery was obvious. One of the officers involved in the case called me and said, "We're pursuing this. She's not walking away from this one." And she didn't. Just 1 week later, I watched from my porch as 2 unmarked cars pulled up in front of her house. 2 plainclothes investigators walked up, knocked, and calmly served her with a court summons. Karen didn't scream. She didn't yell. She didn't even come outside. She just closed the door slowly, like she knew it was over. News spread fast. Word traveled through the neighborhood like wildfire. A few neighbors actually came by my house to thank me. One even brought coffee. Another left a handwritten note on my porch that said, "Thank you for standing up to her." We were all scared. For the first time in months, the neighborhood felt normal. No flyers, no yelling, no passive-aggressive fines taped to garage doors. Just peace. And I didn't have to give up my Harley. In fact, I rode it every morning now, slow and loud. It's just the way Karen hated it. Before I finish this story, let me ask you something. Asterisk. What would you have done if your HOA president tried to frame you, forge evidence, and destroy your reputation over a motorcycle? Would you have fought back or moved out? For me, the choice was clear. I wasn't going anywhere. The court date finally arrived. I showed up in a crisp gray suit, evidence folder in hand. Karen showed up late, wearing oversized sunglasses. Like this was some celebrity scandal instead of a court hearing. She looked worn down. No clipboard, no army of HOA backup. Just her and a lawyer who already looked like he regretted taking the case. The courtroom wasn't even full, but a few curious neighbors had come to watch. Word had gotten around that the infamous Karen from our HOA was being brought in for forgery, defamation, and abuse of position. The judge was no nonsense. As soon as the case was called, he cut right to the evidence. You're watched as the court clerk laid out each forged document showing the mismatched fonts, the fake digital signatures, the altered complaint logs. The state attorney's office presented witness statements, including from the resigned board members, all confirming they had never signed or approved any of the complaints she submitted against me. Karen's lawyer tried to argue it was an honest clerical error. Maybe a volunteer made the changes without her knowledge. No. But the emails told a different story. One chain showed Karen explicitly instructing a board assistant to adjust complaint language and clean up the vote logs. The judge didn't even let her finish her rebuttal. He slammed the gavel once and said, "In my courtroom, it's fraud. Period. You abused your authority, falsified records, and weaponized a legal body for personal revenge. I'm ordering an immediate fine of $10,000, a permanent ban from HOA leadership roles in this district, and referral for further prosecution under the Municipal Fraud Act." Karen looked like she had 10 years and 10 minutes. Her hands shook. Her mouth hung open, but no words came out. For the first time in this whole ordeal, she had absolutely nothing to say. The court was adjourned. As I walked out, a local reporter stopped me for a comment. I just said, "I'm not the hero here. I just didn't let a bully win." That clip later showed up in a local news segment titled "HOA Power Trip Ends in Courtroom. Defeat." It went semi-viral online, and our sleepy little neighborhood became a cautionary tale across the state. As for me, I still live here. My Harley still roars every morning. Karen sold her house within 2 months and moved 3 towns over. No goodbye, no letter, no surprise, just vanished. And now, every time I ride through this quiet little neighborhood, I pass the community center where Karen used to lead her HOA meetings. I smile a little every time, because justice doesn't always come fast. But when it does, it rides in loud and leaves a lasting echo asterisk.